One of the most dreadful and feared Bible passages is Matthew 24:7, which states, "Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famine and earthquakes in various places." Is this terrible Bible passage talking about a future event, or has this prophecy already been fulfilled? History states that on July 16, 1945, the United States blew up the first atomic bomb in White Sands, New Mexico. This great event started the nuclear age. Soon after this event, on August 5th and on August 9, 1945, the United States dropped two atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, killing an estimated 150,000 to 246,000 people. Japan soon afterwards surrendered to Allied forces, and the great and terrible World War II comes to an end. The extreme power and destruction of this invention of the atomic bomb made the then famous mathematician Albert Einstein say his most famous quote, "I know not what weapons World War III will be fought with, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones." For many Christians, the massive destruction of the two Japanese cities made the feared Bible passage of Matthew 24:7 very real, and could be fulfilled in their lifetime or their children's lifetime. And that for the first time in the history of the world, humans had invented weapons so powerful and destructive that they could destroy mankind. But what is questionable to me is that this breakthrough technology that the United States had did not last very long. The super weapon that would have made them by far the most powerful military country in the world soon ended. On August 29, 1949, Russia made its first atomic bomb, and Britain and France built their first atomic bombs in the 1950s. And soon afterwards, it was said that any first world developed country that wanted an atomic bomb could have one or many of them. Was this technology actually new technology or reinvented lost technology? What is suspicious to me is that in the late 1930s, there were countries trying to invent the atomic bomb, like Germany, Russia, and the United States. They all had a concept and knowledge that such a bomb could be invented. Did all these countries just happen to stumble on the same concept and knowledge at the same time? Or perhaps the directions and formula to make such a weapon was deep in the archives of these countries, and they were trying to figure out the directions to build such a weapon. The other suspicious thing is the fires of Moscow that happened in the Great War of 1812. History states that French troops were ready to march into Moscow, but the Russian leaders set fire to Moscow. These fires were said to be very hot and sporadic and flare up and die down all over the burning city. It took 5 days for the city to cool down enough for the French troops to invade Moscow. There are rumors that these fires were caused by an atomic bomb, and that is why they were so hot and sporadic. But what is interesting is that today there are parts of the city of Moscow that have very high radiation levels, much higher than normal, yet there is no explanation for why. The other questionable thing is the famous British author H.G. Wells writes about atomic bombs in his 1914 novel, The World Set Free, 31 years before atomic bombs were supposedly invented, which I think would be almost impossible for H.G. Wells to know about atomic bombs before they were invented unless he had some knowledge of them. Very questionable. Then there is this, the great Tunguska explosion that happened in Siberia, Russia on June 30th, 1908, killing only 3 people, but flattening out an estimated 80 million trees over an 830-mile radius, the largest explosion in recorded history. The mainstream narrative is this explosion was caused by a giant meteorite hitting the region. But what is very suspicious is there's no impact crater in the area. Also, if the meteorite exploded in the air like a lot of people speculate it did, causing the massive destruction, then there should be large amounts of meteorite fragments or matter in the area. But there is none. In other words, there's no evidence that a meteorite or comet caused the explosion. Then the question is, what did? There are very few things that could cause this scale of destruction. Atomic bombs are one of them. Was this area destroyed by an atomic bomb or bombs, and the cities and towns in this area were completely obliterated and erased from history, and that the meteorite is just a cover story to explain away all the flattened out, destroyed trees? I believe that is very likely. The other very questionable thing is most European and American cities had a great fire in their past, but when looking at historical pictures of the aftermath of the fires, we see what looks like the same destruction we see in the aftermath photos of the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki after the atomic bomb was dropped on them in 1945. Example, look at the aftermath photo of Hiroshima after the atomic bomb explosion and the aftermath of the supposed Great Chicago Fire. Same looking destruction. Now compare the aftermath photo of the Japanese city of Nagasaki after an atomic bomb with the aftermath photo of the 1872 Great Fire of Boston. We see the same type of destruction. I could give you many more examples than this, but let's move on. Let's get back to the famous Bible passage of Matthew 24:7, which states that there will be a time when nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. If we look back in history, we see a time exactly like the time the famous Bible passage describes, and that is the Great Wars of 1812. In Europe, the Great Napoleonic Wars were raging, where all the countries in Europe were involved, including Iran and the Ottoman Empire. Over in North America, the United States was fighting a big war against Britain and Canada and the Indian coalition led by the famous Indian chief Tecumseh in big and bloody battles. But the famous Bible passage also states that there would be earthquakes in various places. If we look back in history, it says that during the Great War of 1812, there was great earthquakes in North America called the New Madrid earthquakes. History states that the first of these earthquakes started on December 16th, 1811, with a magnitude of 7.2, and then another earthquake of 8.2 on the Richter scale. These earthquakes continued through February 7th, 1812, with over 2,000 earthquakes recorded. History also states that these earthquakes caused the Mississippi River to flow backwards. As a side note, history says the Richter scale was not invented until 1935, yet the magnitude of the New Madrid earthquakes are recorded on the Richter scale in 1811 and 1812, over 100 years before the Richter scale was supposedly invented. It looks like history has been caught red-handed in one of their lies. But I digress. Let's get back to the subject. The other part of the famous Bible passage states that there would be a famine. History says that in 1816, after the Great Wars of 1812, there was a year without a summer that caused very cold and frigid temperatures throughout the year in Europe and North America, which in turn caused crop failures and big livestock die-offs, which caused widespread famine through Europe and North America that killed thousands of people, which also fulfills this famous Bible prophecy. History states that the year without a summer was caused by a great volcano, but I highly doubt this. I've always heard a nuclear winter will happen after an atomic war. But how can we be 100% sure this was in our past? I think the Bible passage gives us a big clue it was. There is a part of this Bible passage that is always overlooked and ignored. Kingdom will rise against kingdom. This Bible passage was talking about a future event, then why would it say kingdom? There are no kingdoms today, only nations. There are a few nations with the word kingdom in them, but there are only nations. The kingdoms are all in the past. I think the facts show that this Bible passage has been fulfilled, and the facts strongly indicate that the atomic bomb was not first invented in 1945, but was reinvented of an old invention, and that our real history is a lot different than the history we have been taught. Anyway, thanks for watching my video, and have a good day.